Hi there guys, and welcome back to part 2 of the tutorial series, and we will be making this realistic-ish version of Venonat and a pokeball. Alright, so you might have noticed that my pokeball looks a bit different than in part 1, and that is because I didn't save, and as luck would have it, the power went out. So if you haven't saved, now would be a good time. So you can just go to File, Save As, because I've already saved it, and you will notice that GIMP saves it as an XCF file. What this means is just that it will maintain all the different layers. If you want to save it as an image file, you would actually go to File, Export, and then you can select an image type that is standard like PNG or JPEG. You can expand the option below to say select file type, or you can just enter the extension manually. Alright, so to start off with, we're going to create a new layer, and we are going to, for now, just hide the pokeball layer. Then we are going to draw a oval. You can draw an oval of any size and then just type in the size here. So that's 1350 by 1500. Then we will select a dark purple color, and quite dark purple because this is the base of the fur. Then we will create a new layer on top of that, just as a guide layer. So we will draw just a little white dot about 3/4 of the way up. This is just going to help us when we're drawing the fur to get the orientation of the fur right. Select your purple layer again. You can just press Ctrl A to select everything. Then we're going to go to the smudge tool. We're going to change the size to 100, and then drag with the smudge tool from outside of the circle in towards the white dot that we've made, and we go all the way around. It doesn't have to be exact spacing. It's actually better if it's an irregular spacing. Then we're going to go around and just on some of the points that we've dragged in, just make them deeper so we don't notice a specific pattern. Alright, once we are done with that, we're going to click inside of the purple and drag outwards on some of the points that are flat. So we'll start out with a few of these and drag outwards from inside of the circle to the grey. If you make a mistake, for this part it's easier if you hold your hand on Ctrl Z, so that every time when you make a mistake you can just press Ctrl Z to undo that and then continue on. Alright. Next, we're going to select a different brush. We're going to select bristles 1, and we are going to change the rate to 80. And then we're going to do the same as what we've started with, dragging from the outside of the circle inwards on basically all of the points to create a fur-like texture. Also, again, in the direction from where your mouse is towards the white dot. Alright, once we're done with that, we're going to change the direction, so we're going to be clicking inside of the circle and dragging outwards towards the grey until all of the flat spots are basically gone. Then we're going to create a new layer above the fur layer. We're going to change our primary color to a slightly lighter purple. We're going to select the airbrush tool and then draw from the inside towards the edges of the fur in more or less the same length all around. It might look very subtle, but that's the idea. If it's too bright, it won't look natural. So we want to try and stay inside of the fur. When you're done, you should have a empty spot in the middle with the fur all around the sides. Now we're going to change the purple again to just a slightly lighter color than it was, and we are going to repeat the process all the way around. Alright, and then we're going to repeat the process one more time, selecting a slightly lighter purple, and then from the inside empty spot, drag outwards just to cover the spot basically. Now we are going to merge down that fur layer to the bottom darker fur layer. Then we're going to create a new layer and set it to multiply. We're going to change our brush back to the hardness 050. And we are going to change the size to 500, and then we're going to select our base purple, and to do this quickly without selecting the color picker, you can just press Ctrl and click once and it should select the color. But notice that I am on the transparent layer now, on the multiply layer, so it doesn't actually select this layer. So if we select the color picker and we turn on the sample merged and we go back to our airbrush tool, if you press Ctrl and click now, it will actually select whichever color is right underneath the cursor. Now what we want to do is just from right below the white dot, we will be dragging upwards to about halfway of the fur, and just gently darken this quarter of the fur, not all the way to the edge. Then we're gonna create a new layer again. We're gonna select the soft light, change our color to white. So now we're gonna color in just the top quarter with the soft light, and then we want to color in just the edges of the fur, just the very edge. So not too far in, you just want to catch that little bit of hair sticking over. And now when we start merging down, remember to merge down from the bottom layer and not the top layer. If we were to merge down the soft light onto the multiply layer, you would just lose the soft light completely. It would just disappear like that. So instead we're going to merge down the multiply layer first to the normal layer and then the soft light layer. And that will keep our highlights on the edge. If you're not quite happy with the color, what you can do now is go to color and say levels, and then if you started out too bright or too dark, then you can just adjust the colors over here. I'm going to make mine quite dark, so you still want to see the hair, but it should be reasonably dark in this area. Now we're going to create a new layer again, and this will be our eyes. If it's easier for you to manage your layers, you can rename a layer by clicking on it and pressing F2, or by clicking on it and selecting edit layer properties and then change the name. So we will call this layer eyes. Then we're going to draw an oval shape, and our oval shape size will be 350 by 400. Then you're going to select a pale pink gray area. We're going to be filling the oval with a gradient, so you want to as well select a very dark version of that pink. Then we're going to select our blend or gradient tool, change the shape to radial, click in the center and drag out towards the edge to create that shading. Then we're going to copy this oval by pressing Ctrl C and Ctrl V. Now it pastes directly over this eye, so it might look like it didn't do anything, but when you move the eye you will notice that it did indeed make a copy. After you've moved the eye, we are going to resize the eye. So we're going to select our scale tool, select the eye, and now we want to decrease the width to 300 and decrease the height to 380 and say scale. Now we're going to select both eyes, so select the fuzzy tool, click in the gray area, and that should select everything except the eyes, but we want to select the eyes, so we're going to press Ctrl I to invert the selection to just the eyes. Then we're going to go to Filter, Distort, Mosaic. Now we're going to change a few of these properties. We'll start off by changing the size to 30, and if you press tab it should adjust the size. The height will leave, the spacing we're going to increase to 2, the neatness we're going to increase all the way up to 1 to create nice hexagon shapes. The light direction you can leave, and then the color variation we want to reduce to 0. Then we also want to select the FG/BG lighting, and that will fill in all the gaps, and you can press OK and just wait for that to render. And now your spheres or your ovals have hexagon patterns on them. Now I'm going to move my eyes just slightly towards the edge, so your right eye should be almost at the edge of the fur and your left eye should be just to the left of the center. And then we're going to just press Ctrl A to select everything. Now we're going to be rotating the right eye a bit, so we'll select the rectangle select tool, drag a box around the eye, press Ctrl X, Ctrl V to cut and paste, then select our rotation tool, click on the eye, and we're going to rotate it to -10 degrees. It doesn't have to be exactly -10, -10 point something is good enough. Then I'm going to move the eye slightly closer, just so that there's about half an eye's gap in between the two eyes. And we're also going to position it slightly above left eye and anchor the layer. Now we're going to create a new layer just above the eyes and change it to multiply again. And then we're going to select a bluish color, select the airbrush tool. We can change the size down to 200, and then right around the edge of the eye we want to color in to make just the edge slightly darker, and this will also give an appearance of the purple reflecting on the eye. Don't worry too much about going over the edge like this. When we merge it down, the blue outside of the eye will disappear. Do the same with the opposite eye. And then merge down the layer. Now we're going to create a new layer again, but this time below the eyes. Change it to multiply. Select a dark purple and then color around the eye. And this will give the eye some depth in the fur. We can delete our white spot layer just by selecting it and clicking on the delete button at the bottom. Then we're going to create a new layer below the fur. And we are going to draw little ears on Venonat. So we're going to select the paintbrush tool, change the size to 50, change the brush to hardness 50, and then we're going to draw two little ears. So I'm going to be drawing the first ear right above the left eye. Just drag it out. Make sure your layer is below the fur layer, and we're just going to draw two small ears. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. Two ears of any size should be fine. If your image is a bit too high up like mine, you're just gonna have to move down all the layers individually. Then select the eye layer. You can click on the rectangle tool, drag a box around the eye, press Ctrl X, Ctrl V, and move that down again. And then the same with the shadows. Drag a box around them, press Ctrl X, Ctrl V, move them down towards the eye. And we're going to move our ears down as well, so select the rectangle tool, click on the ears layer just below the fur layer, drag a box around it, press Ctrl X, Ctrl V and move them down as well. Now I'm going to finish drawing my second ear. It didn't fit the first time. Now we're going to create a feather effect on the ears, almost like a moth's antenna. So we're going to select the smudge tool, make sure the size is set to 50, select bristles 1, and then we're going to drag in towards the center of the ear to give it a feather-like effect. So click outside of on the gray area and pull towards the center of the ear on both sides. And on both ears. Next we're going to create a new layer above the fur layer again. And we will be drawing antenna. Select a white color, change the size to 70. Then we're going to be drawing a slight arch out like this. Next we're going to go to Filter, Distort, Emboss, and we are going to change the azimuth to 75. Elevation we'll leave at 45 and depth will change to 45. Press OK, and this might take a while to generate. Now we're going to copy this antenna, so click on the rectangle select tool and drag a box around it. Press Ctrl C, Ctrl V to make a copy, then go to Layer, Transform, Flip horizontally. Then we're going to move it into position on the other side. Because we are drawing Venonat at an angle, this antenna should be quite shorter. So we're going to select our scale tool, click on the antenna and then drag it way back until the edge of the antenna is slightly behind the edge of the fur, and click on scale. It might have moved slightly lower, so we can just click on the movement tool and drag it back into position. Now we're going to apply the same effect as we did on the ears on the antenna. So select our smudge tool, make sure the size is back to 50, change the brush to bristles 1, and then we're going to feather the antenna on both sides the same way we did with the ear. And we'll do the same for the right antenna. Now you'll notice right on the edge that it's a bit bright, so we'll use the same smudge tool just in the direction of the purple fur below to just smudge away a lot of the white. And you can drag up and down just to make it seem like the edge is going into the fur on both antennae. Now we're going to adjust the levels of the antenna because the shadow part of the antenna is a bit too dark. So we're going to go to color, levels, and then we're going to change in the output levels, the first slider we're going to move all the way up to 80. And that will make the very dark shadow slightly lighter, and press OK. Now we're going to give the antenna a very light purple tint, so we're going to go to colorize, and then we're going to change the hue to 260, and we're going to change the saturation all the way down to 10. And select OK. Now we're going to create a new layer above the antenna. Then we are going to draw an oval shape. This time the oval size is 360 by 210. Then we're going to fill in the oval shape with a radial gradient. So we'll select a light gray for the primary and a dark gray for the secondary. Select the blend or gradient tool. Make sure your shape is on radial. Select in the top right quadrant and drag down towards the edge. Then move the shape onto the antenna's edge, and you might notice that it moved the entire layer, which is highlighted by this yellow line. And what you can do when that happens is just right click on the layer and say layer to image size, and that should reset it back again. Now we're going to feather this dot as well, the same way we did the ears and the antenna. So select the smudge tool, set the brush to bristles 1, set the size to 50, and then we are going to right on the edge drag in towards the shape all the way around. And then drag from within the shape outwards all the way around. Now if the oval is too dark, we can go to color, levels, and then adjust the levels to make it slightly lighter. So on the input levels, the last slider at the edge, we're going to drag a bit in to increase the lightness, and the middle shader we're going to drag a bit towards the right to increase the shadow, and press OK. Same way we did with the antenna, we are also going to give it a slight purple tint. So go to color, colorize, increase the hue to 260 and decrease the saturation to 10, and click OK. Now we're going to do the same on the other edge, but not the same shape. This time we'll draw a circle, so you can click and hold down the shift key and drag it to about 160. Put it over the edge of the antenna, then select gradient, select the center and drag it out. Now you'll see that the layer is above the antenna. We want it below the antenna, so we can select this little ball, press Ctrl X to cut it and paste, and then right click on the floating layer and say to new layer. Then we can drag the layer underneath our antenna to put it at the back of the antenna. Now you might need to just right click on that layer and say layer to image size. Then we're going to color it again, so click on color, colorize, change the hue to 260 and the saturation to 10. Then we're going to feather it the same way we did this side. So we're going to select the smudge tool and then drag in towards the center all around, and then as well drag out towards the edge. This is again a bit dark, so we'll just go to color, levels, and adjust the last slider a bit in towards the middle, and the middle slider towards the edge to give it a slightly darker shadow. And remember to save. Okay, so now select your antenna layer again and then just smudge it a bit so that it looks like it merges into the little end of the antenna. Create a new layer. Then we're going to draw an oval shape of 280 by 180. We're going to fill it in with a brownish color, and then change your secondary color to a darker version of that brown color. Want to make the dark brown quite dark. Then we're going to select our blend tool, and we're going to select from the top left quadrant and drag down all the way to the edge. Now we are going to rotate the nose, so click on rotation, select the nose, and we are going to rotate it by -5. Then just reposition the nose to where it looks right and anchor the layer. I'm going to just rename this layer to nose by clicking on it, pressing F2 and typing in nose. Then we are going to create a new layer. Set it to multiply. Then we are going to select the paintbrush tool. We're going to change the brush to chalk. Then we're going to change the size to 200. And then on the nose, we're just going to click a few times to create a bit of a texture. Then we are going to create a new layer again above the nose. Change the mode to soft light. Change our color to white. And again, just click a few times on the nose. And now for both the multiply layer and the soft light layer, we are going to decrease the opacity to 50%. And then once again just merge the layers from the bottom to the top. So we're going to merge down the soft light layer and merge down the multiply layer. Then we're going to create a new layer again above the nose, set it to multiply again, change our brush to hardness 50, select a brown color again, and then select our airbrush tool and just lightly on the bottom edge of the nose make it slightly darker to give the illusion of a shadow. Then we are going to merge down that layer, and we're going to repeat that process, but this time below the nose. So create a new layer, multiply, select a purple color by pressing Ctrl and clicking on a purple area, and then again below the nose just color in to give it a slight shadow, and merge that down. Now we'll be creating a new layer. Draw an oval shape of 280 by 200 and fill it in with a very light ivory color. Then draw another ellipse around that one, slightly bigger than that ellipse. Drag it down halfway and press delete, and then select rectangle tool and select half of the shape and delete that as well. Draw a circle on the edge on the flat side of the tusk and fill that in as well. Press Ctrl A to select everything, drag a box around the tusk, cut, paste, and move it into position. Make sure your tusk is above the nose layer. Then we're going to select the tusk again, and we are going to rotate it by -35 degrees. And then move it into place. Then you can copy that tusk by selecting it and paste, and then we're going to flip horizontal, so go to layer, transform, flip horizontal, and move it to the side. You'll notice that it is slightly higher than the left tusk. Now go to your nose layer, click outside of the nose, press Ctrl I to select the nose, select your eraser, make sure the brush size is small enough so you can just erase the edge of the second tusk. So make it 100, and then go back to your tusk layer and erase the edge of the task. Press Ctrl A to select everything. Now we're going to create a new layer above the task. Set it to multiply. Change to a darker ivory color. Select our airbrush tool and color in the inside of the task. On both tasks. Then select a slightly darker color again and just color in the very edge of the tasks and merge down that layer. Now we're going to just erase the sharp edges of the task, so select your eraser, change the size to about 50 and just gently erase the sharp edge so that it is rounded. Now create a new layer above the nose layer. Set it to multiply. Click on your airbrush tool. Change the size to 100. Select the brown color by pressing Ctrl and clicking. And then just color slightly below the task. And then merge down that layer. We're going to create a new layer below the fur. Going to draw a oval shape of 450 by 360. We're going to fill it in again with a very pale ivory color. Then you're going to select the eraser and just change the size to 50. And just below half of the circle we're going to make a small indent for our toes. Then we can move this shape to just behind the fur. If you've moved the entire layer, just right click and say layer to image size. Select the left foot, copy and paste it. Go to layer, transform, flip horizontal and move it to the other side. And move it slightly above the left foot. And now same with the tusk, we're going to add multiply layers and just color in the shadow areas. So right click on the foot layer, say new layer, set to multiply, select a darker color, select the airbrush tool, start out with 50 and draw in a little line for the toes. Then change the size to 200 and color in the edge of the foot to give it a gradient. On both feet. Change the color slightly darker, and right on the edge make it even darker. And then merge down your multiply layer. Then we are going to select the right foot. Because it's in the shadow area, we're going to go to colors, levels, and I'm going to drag the output levels down to 180. And there we have our little Venonat. In the third part, we will be adding the finalized touches to complete the scene for the pokeball and Venonat.